Pulvanakana, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, students. It gives me much pleasure to be here. I'd like to keep the proceedings for this morning very, very informal. You all look very, very serious to me. You all need to smile a bit more, need to relax a bit more, and because that's the only way that we'll be able to get the best input from you. But before I actually start on the budget itself, one of the reasons why I got the garland to be put on the Permanent Secretary for Finance is because for the first time in Fiji's history, we actually have a Permanent Secretary for Finance who's a female. And this is in recognition of that, and I think we should put our hands again together for the new year. But what it also does indicate to us, if I can call it, ladies and gentlemen, what it indicates to us is that we need to always choose the best person for the right job. You see, you should not have gender, ethnicity, your religion, your province, the color of your hair, how tall, how short you are, be an impediment from getting you the job. Because if we don't appoint the best person for the job, if your high school does not appoint the best person as the head girl or the head boy, the students below them won't necessarily follow them. Or they'll say things behind their back. And the school won't get the best result from the head boy or head girl. Some of you will be, of course, leaving high school end of this year. Some of you, hopefully all of you, will go to university or even a technical college. When you graduate from a technical college or university, when you apply for a job, you will want to get your job on merit. If this row of people all apply for a job after they finish university, but the people or the employer says to themselves, I'm only going to employ a person who has got blue eyes and blonde hair, right? So all of these people, and this lady here may be the best for that position. She may have got the best marks, she may have got the best practical knowledge, but she misses out because she does not have blue eyes. Not only is it unfair to her, but to the organization, because that organization will lose out on getting the best person to do the best job for them. It's very, very simple. And this is the way that the Fiji First government, and prior to that the Bainimarama government, has been trying to implement policies, has been trying to appoint people. If we appoint the best person for the right job, then we know that that company will do well, or that permanent secretary will do well, or that ministry will do well. If you don't appoint the right people for the right job in the hospital system, so when you go to the hospital, you won't get treated by the best person. If I have to operate on this, if this gentleman needs a kidney replacement, if he needs a kidney replacement, do you think he's going to say, I want somebody from Vanua to do this surgery on me? He will say, I want the best surgeon. You don't really care. If your child, some of you will have children very soon, hopefully not that soon, but some of you will have children. When your son or your daughter is sick, you want your son and daughter, when they're sick, to see the best doctor. That's what you want. You don't care where they come from, what province they come from, what ethnicity, what's the color of their eyes. That is a very important issue that we all need to understand. And countries that have failed to do this have always faltered. And this is the basis of what this government is trying to do. Why are we here today? We are here today, and this has never been done before. We are here today because we want to hear your views. We want to know what you think should be in the budget. Because when you say what should be in the budget, you are telling us what are your priorities, what is important to you. We also believe that you are, of course, the future of the country. If the future of the country is happy with the country, then the country will do well. Today, 70% of the entire Fijian population is below the age of 40. 70%. That's a lot of people. In some countries, it's the other way around. In countries like Japan, there are far more older people than younger people, because they have an aging population. We actually don't have that problem. Our challenge and our opportunity is that we have a lot of young people. A former president of India said, the youth should not become job seekers. The youth should become job creators. So some of you, or some of your colleagues who are not here, we want to nurture you so you actually can become businessmen and businesswomen. Some of you may be very good with IT. You know the M-Pesa that you're using? The M-Pesa that you're using was actually reconfigured by a young man from Lambasa, from Vanua-Levu. I don't know where they came from Lambasa, but he came from Vanua-Levu, who works for Vodafone. He's the man who's actually given M-Pesa to you. So what it goes to show that all of you have the ability to have some form of input. And some of you may be geniuses sitting amongst you. I don't necessarily mean in a conventional sense, not that you're getting all 100%. But I use the word genius in a very different manner. Not just by way of marks, but in terms of new ideas. In terms of what do you think you can do. Some people may be very good IT, applications, developing new applications. Some of you may have some ideas that could be about infrastructure. So this is the reason why we're here. We also want to explain to you so you understand how a budget is formulated. A budget, ladies and gentlemen, is when a government says how it will spend its money and where will it get that money from to spend. You are here in Lambasa College. This is a government-run school. So government has to build the buildings, government has to make sure the maintenance of the building is done. All of you come from schools where all the teachers, all your teachers' salaries is paid by government. Some of you catch the bus. You get free bus fare. That's paid by government. We spend $20 million a year. Well, last year we spent $19 million a year in paying bus companies to give you subsidized bus fares. Those of you who may have grandparents, we now pay $50 a month for those people who are 68 years and over. We give them some form of allowance. It never used to happen before. None of you pay school fees now. None of you pay school fees now. We pay your fees for you. We give the money directly to schools. Because we believe everybody needs education, but it costs money. We give the Ministry of Education how much a year? What, $400 million a year. Which includes your school fees, bus fares, teachers' salaries, maintenance of buildings, your exam papers. All of that costs money. Printing of textbooks. The roads that you see being built, those of you who live towards Nambuwalu, the Nambuwalu-Draketi road, that cost over $200 million to build that, or tahsil that road. We're doing similar projects in other parts of Fiji. The hospitals that you go to, the medicine that you use, the doctor's salary, that all comes from the budget. In Fiji, almost every single year since independence, we have spent more than what we collect as revenue. Revenue is we collect revenue. Like so, for example, when somebody drives fast and you get the speeding fine, that speeding fine ticket that you get and the money you pay, that goes to government. When people leave Fiji, the airport tax, they pay departure tax, we collect that money. When people, the business people, they pay taxes, hopefully more of them will pay taxes, trying to get more of them to pay taxes. When they pay taxes, we collect that money. People who earn more than $16,000 a year, They pay what they call PAYE, pay as you earn tax. That money comes to government. Countries like Fiji and many other countries is to make sure that your deficit is always little bit, not too much. And that's what we've been doing, in particular in the past 5 or 6 years, trying to keep a deficit low. So try and control our expenditure and try and collect more. Countries like Singapore, they have a surplus. They collect far more than what they spend. Far more. Because their leaders had a vision. They started back in the 1960s. In the 1960s, Singapore was economically behind Fiji. Mauritius was behind Fiji. Singapore is the size of Taveuni. But the economy is far, far bigger than ours. We have more rivers, streams, creeks, land to plant agriculture. They actually, drinking water comes from Malaysia. They don't even have a river or creek that they can get water from. When the military goes and does jungle training, they don't even have a jungle. They go and hire a jungle from Indonesia, so the military can do training. But they had a vision. They involved everybody, they had a goal, and today they are where they are. So our goal is this, and our belief is this, is that the future of Fiji lies with you. The future of Fiji lies with you if we give you all the necessary tools so you can do your best. Not everybody will become a doctor, engineer. Some of you may become very good florists. Some of you may become very good automotive mechanics. Some of you may become very good pastry chefs. Some of you will become very good nurses. Whatever the case is, we want to give you the tools. Some of you become very good carpenters. There's no shame in doing what you want to do, as long as it's honest, as long as it's legal. So what we wanted to do before, I'll get the Permanent Secretary to very quickly highlight to you what are some of the key features in terms of measuring the economy, etc. But I would like to give you, so while she's talking, and whilst I'm also talking now, I'd like you to think about what I'm saying in respect of what you want from the budget. You know, in Parliament last week, we had the opposition. It was more of a gimmick. They said, oh, make university education all free. Very few countries in the world have that. Very few countries. But you see, the budget is about balancing. As you know, money is always limited. So if we put and say, okay, let's have all university education free, completely free. At the moment, let me explain to you. When you leave Form 7, you can apply for 2 types of assistance. One is the toppers. We give 600 positions to people who are the top range of students in the respective areas of study. So we don't give a topper scholarship if you want to do law. You want to do law, please go and pay for it on your own. Or you can get it under TELS too. But we're not going to get a scholarship. There are too many lawyers. Our area of priority is nursing, doctors, engineers, marine scientists, forest conservators, land surveyors, valuers, the whole list of things in the tourism industry, because these are the areas where we lack the skill sets, where we lack enough professionals. Now, if you qualify for that, you get a topper scholarship, we pay for everything. It doesn't matter where you come from in Fiji, who you are, you'll get it. It's based on merit. Now, if you are not a topper and you get a place in university and you cannot afford to pay the fees, we pay it for you under the TELS program. TELS stands for Tertiary Education Loan Scheme. We pay for you. And you pay the government back once you have started working. When you finish your university degree and then you get a work, then you can start paying a small percentage slowly. And if your family earns less than $16,000, there's no interest rate. The maximum interest rate charged is only 1.5%. It's very little. Now, if somebody makes a ridiculous proposition and says, pay for everything now, that means we'll have less money to build roads. We'll have less money to put electricity. I know many parts in Vanua-Levu, they don't have running water. People are still drinking from wells or boreholes. Some people are drinking water from creeks. So, what you need to think about, should we give people more water, access to electricity, and then you can also give them a loan for education? Or do we make it completely free, but they don't have enough water, money for water and roads or electricity? It's a balancing act. Budget is all about balancing, prioritizing. What is of key priority? So for example, one of the key priorities for us is domestic violence. So we will give more money where it helps stop violence against women and children. As the Minister for Women has already announced, we are going to have a 24-hour call center. Domestic violence is not only about, men and women, it's morally wrong. Yes, it's morally wrong, ethically wrong, but it also has a financial implication. If you go to, I know there's not that many hotels in Lambasa, but if you go to Savisavu, if you go to the Western Division, most of the people who work in the hotel industry, and the hotel industry is the largest single contributor to our economy. It contributes 35% towards our economy. In most of the hotels, the people who serve at the table, who are the waitress, the people who clean your toilet, the people who change your bed sheets, the people who clean the room are women. Now, if they are being bashed up the night before at home, how do you think they'll perform? Some of you may have female teachers. If your female teacher has been bashed up the night before at home, do you think she'll be able to teach you properly? Of course not. If I get bashed up at my house, if I walk down the street now and somebody bashes me up, do you think I can stand up here and give a talk? Of course not. Because physically I feel weak, emotionally, mentally I don't feel good. Some big guy bashes me up, although I got some kung fu moves, but But assuming I get bashed up, my productivity will be low. And the reality is that in our society, we have more women being bashed up than men. So it is also an economic issue too. So we are giving that priority in our budget. The rest of the budget and lots of other things, depending on the focus of the government, it's a balancing act. So we have to be responsible. When we present budgets, we have to be responsible. Some people say, you've got to tahsil all the roads in Vanua-Levu. If you want to tahsil all the roads in Vanua-Levu, then we can't tahsil all the roads in Viti-Levu, or some of the roads. Then we'll be able to spend less money for water, electricity. There may be other needs too. So that's what I wanted to say to you, ladies and gentlemen. So when you're thinking about the comments you want to make, please try and understand. When you see us standing on the 22nd of June, and for the first time in Fiji's history, the budget will be delivered at night time, at 7:30 p.m. So you can all be having your dinner and watching us deliver the budget. So we want to add more people to listen to it. Normally what happens with the budget too, I want to explain to you, we have what we call a lockout period, a lockout period, where we give certain journalists and accountants the right to see the budget before I deliver it. So we have a lockout period of 2 hours or 3 hours, so they go through the books, they do the analysis, and then hopefully they write a better report for you in the morning. This time around, because the budget will be delivered at 7:30 p.m., we'll lock them in from about 2 p.m. So they have a much longer period, 5 hours. So hopefully journalists like him will do a much better job in his analysis. And we intend to then, during that 5 hours, go and explain to them if they have any questions, rather than them doing the analysis themselves. So it's creating more transparency. We are involving you today. Tomorrow, I have a meeting with the Disabled Association. Disability is also one area that we need to address. We have a lot of people in Fiji who are disabled, whether they are blind or physically handicapped. We want to also hear their views. Last week in Parliament, we presented a bill where Fiji is ratifying various conventions. So we adhere. If you see the footpaths here in Fiji, many of the footpaths, they're not what we call compliant with these standards. You know, when you're on the footpath, you need a road, there's a crossing, it's supposed to be a ramp, it's supposed to be there. Because I'm coming in my wheelchair, it's very difficult for me to get off the curb. It's a very simple thing, but it makes life very easy. I was on crutches a few years ago for 9 months because I busted my knee. This is going back a long time ago. And it made me realize, even though my condition was temporary, there are people like that whose condition is permanent. Things you take for granted. Both your hands work. Imagine if one of your hands did not work, or you did not have either of the hands. So these are the things we need to talk about. A country is as strong as how best it looks after the people on the margins. Remember that. You'll be a very strong country if you look after people who are on the margins. It's always very easy to address people who are in the center. So, we're meeting the Disabled People Association tomorrow. And then on Saturday, we are meeting at Suva Grammar School for all the students, selected schools from the Central Division. And then on Monday, we're meeting the Disabled Association in Lautoka for the Western Division. And then at, I think about 11 a.m., we're meeting the students at Natabua High School. So you are the first. We were here last week on Saturday in this very same hall where we met business people and various other NGOs, etc., who wanted to make contributions. But we want to hear from you in respect of what you have to say, and what are some of the views. Please do not feel shy to say anything. Nothing is stupid, nothing is too silly. You know, it's always better to say something or better to ask a question than to sit there quietly and somebody thinks you know it. Okay, so with those introductory remarks, and we'll get into more details. I didn't want to sort of bamboozle you with a lot of facts and information, but there are my introductory remarks. I'll now get the Permanent Secretary, who's got a small overview of the Fijian economy, and these are some slides that have been extracted from the presentation that was done by the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank, who was here last week. So thank you very much for your time. I'd like to thank you for making the effort in coming here this morning. I know some of you come from far away and probably had to wake up too early to come here. But so thank you very much for that. And I look forward to a very good interaction with you. Naka, thank you.
First and foremost, I would like to thank the government of Fiji for the initiative to bring this national budget consultation to the North, and especially to our students to also make our submission. And my question is, why is not the law scholarship included? And as you've aforementioned that there is a lot of lawyers in Fiji. So if we are not considered, then why not give us the opportunity to study overseas, attain a qualification from there, and then work as well in overseas countries, and then we'll also contribute as an income to the country by the remittances. So why can't that be considered, since it is an ambition of a lifetime, like we've reached Form 7 and then we see that our dream is shattered. So can you please?
Well, you can get TELS. You can get TELS. Doesn't mean you can't get TELS. You can get TELS. The reality is this, ladies and gentlemen. If you, for example, get TELS, if you're going to migrate from Fiji, we expect you to pay it back before you leave. You can't, for example, get your education paid and then migrate. But if you migrate, please pay for it before you go. Because, as I said, 70% of the population is below the age of 40. we have to look after everybody. Yeah? We all have to contribute equally. So, it's the same thing with VAT. I'll tell you a story about VAT. Before we reduced VAT, VAT was 15%. But there were certain foods, they said, they used to call it basic, but it wasn't necessarily basic. That was VAT exempt. So they said the people who earn less won't have to pay VAT. But the reality is, when they exempted VAT, even the rich people did not have to pay VAT. Like for example, before you didn't pay VAT on rice, go to the supermarket. So a person who's earning $10,000 buys a packet of rice, 5 kilograms, pays no VAT. A person earning $50,000 buys 5 kilogram VAT, they don't pay VAT. A person earning $100,000 does not pay VAT. But all of you need to buy toilet paper, all of you need toothpaste, right? You buy potatoes, you buy onions, you buy salt, you buy sugar, everything had VAT on it too. So by reducing VAT and applying VAT across the board, we are able to assist more people. The cost of living for groceries has come down by 4.5%. That's the overall objective. The other issue that we found also was many of the companies were playing around. Some supermarkets, because you see when you pay VAT, they pay that to the FERCA and then they claim some of it back. So if some of the items they sell is not VATable, some of it is VATable, they cook the books. So there is a lot of chorring going on, which we want to stop. But by doing that, we are now able to help more people. The lady who talked about the cane cutters, etc. Before in Fiji, you did not get anything if you were old and you did not have NPF. We started it, if you were 70, we pay over 70, we paid you $50. We then reduced it to, now it's 68. And we will be further reducing it to 66. So many of the people who may be farmers, who are living subsistence, living in the villages, who are cane farmers, who've never worked in the formal sector, can get that $50 now.
Honorable Minister for Finance and your hardworking and esteemed finance team, first and foremost, I would like to take this time to thank you for establishing this budget consultation for secondary school students so they can raise their concerns and their voices can be heard. I, as the head boy of All Saints, I would like to make a submission that speaking on the free grant given to schools, directly given to schools in the allocation for educational purposes, for example, printing of notes, buying of textbooks, etc., I would also like to request that an allocation be made from the tuition grants to be given to schools for fares, for school excursions, and students traveling out of their schools to represent their schools in sporting events, respectively, such as athletics, soccer, rugby, and netball. Rational, this was paid for by schools through fundraising and many other schools, parent, teachers, and friends associations, budgeted for these sporting trips. But now with no fundraising and a limit on what we can use on our PMEC allocation for, students have been asked to pay for their own fares when representing their schools. Unfortunately, for students in the north, example Coca-Cola Games, their expenses for going and coming back from Coca-Cola Games is quite expensive. And unfortunately, many talented athletes can't pay for their fares. So, additionally, all school excursions for subject taught in schools should be fully funded from tuition grants, as excursions are a core part of learning. All students should go for field trips, and no students should be left out because they can't pay for their fare. But basically, my submission is if you could bring back the fundraising that usually be done on schools before, so that students don't no longer look for ways in which they can pay their fare, but fortunately their fares be paid from the tuition grants. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll obviously talk to the Ministry of Education and see about the allocations for that. I mean, I see the point in particular if you have to travel from Wano Levu to Viti Levu. Just let me also tell you that, you know, in some schools when they used to have, before free education came along, a lot of the funds used to get abused too. But the other thing is also that when we gave the grant, the idea was to prioritize, and maybe areas such as what you're talking about may have been, you know, not addressed fully. And that's something that we can take on board, and we'll talk to the Ministry of Education about that.